Hey y'all, it's me, Kevvie! So for the past few months, people all over BookTube have been debating what is the great American novel. Until recently, my only answer was Beloved by Toni Morrison. However, I just read this incredible novel, which I believe deserves consideration for that title. It is The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah. I am a huge fan of Sister Souljah. Before writing novels, she was best known as an activist and the only female member of Public Enemy. I've been enjoying her solo rap work for years. If you've never listened to her, go check out her song The Hate That Hate Produced, as well as her album 360 Degrees of Power. In 1994, Sister Souljah published her memoir, No Disrespect, which I read and loved last year. Then in 1999, she published her first novel, The Coldest Winter Ever, through Simon & Schuster. This book revived the genre of urban fiction, stories set in urban city environments, primarily focusing on people of color in low economic status. Her book really resonated with readers and went on to sell over 1 million copies. The Coldest Winter Ever is about a girl named Winter Santiago, the daughter of a Brooklyn drug lord. When her life of decadence comes crashing down after her father's incarceration, Winter must fend for herself and do whatever is necessary, no matter who it may hurt. Throughout the book, Winter is entirely devoted to her father, and maybe even is the only one who remains loyal to him after all that shit goes down with getting busted and locked up. Santiago is, in Winter's mind, the perfect man. He's virile, smart, loyal, and gives his wife and daughters anything they could ask for. So when she winds up on her own, her goal is to find a man like that who will take care of her and make all her problems go away. Her whole life, she's only met one man on her father's level, and that is his second in command, Midnight. Even though he's never expressed an interest in her, she is determined to track him down and be with him. I find it fascinating that while Winter's mindset is pretty old-fashioned, the whole Prince Charming storyline being pretty out of favor these days, Winter shows so much ruthless agency over the course of this novel. She may think she needs a man to take care of her, but she doesn't. She is so skilled as a stylist, a beautician, a designer, a decorator, but according to her worldview, the only viable way to support herself is to find a man to support her. Winter Santiago is gorgeous and accustomed to a life of luxury. She gets every designer item she could want and styles them expertly. But her affluent childhood has disconnected her from reality. She thinks that she's getting these things because she's supposed to, and that she is inherently better than the other girls in her community because of that. This makes her an unlikable protagonist. She's vain and self-centered, and will always make decisions that you as the reader will disagree with. Winter is a character with a lesson to learn, but she will fight obstinately against learning it. I really love that Sister Souljah made herself a character in her own novel. She basically acts as the voice of reason, peppering in her own opinions, first appearing just on the radio or wherever, and eventually being a full-fledged character. Whenever Souljah gives Winter advice, she has a choice whether or not to listen. Spoiler alert, Winter does not listen. This book basically acts as a warning. Heed what Sister Souljah tells you, or you could end up like Winter. I'd like to take a moment to share with you the dedication that opens this book. There is no such thing as love anymore. The kind that is so strong that you can feel it in your bones. You know, we used to feel that emotion when we looked into the faces of our mother, father, sisters, brothers, family, and friends. There's no such thing as love anymore. At least not the deep, satisfying kind that sits in your heart and influences every decision and action we take throughout each day. There is no reason to celebrate anymore. Just empty actions and empty reactions. Calculated gestures and financial arrangements. There's no such thing as love anymore. This novel is dedicated to the era in which we live. The era in which love, loyalty, truth, honor, and respect died. Where humility and appreciation are non-existent. Where families are divided and God reviled. The era, the coldest winter ever. This novel is a love letter to the streets, to the community that makes up these streets. Not judging them out of hatred or disdain, but with love, seeing all the potential getting wasted by drugs and gangs. It is a love letter to Black girls in poverty, pleading with them to not end up like Winter, to break the cycle and live a life of love. Now, when people discuss the great American novel, the pantheon is typically restricted to dead white men, with boring-ass shit like Scarlet Letter, Catcher in the Rye, and Great Gatsby. I don't think something like The Great Gatsby should be considered the great American novel. It may show something that a lot of Americans aspired to, but it does not reflect the realities of the American people. The Coldest Winter Ever, on the other hand, is a story that millions of Americans can relate to, living in low-income neighborhoods and being surrounded by the effects of drugs and gang life. This is much more relatable to the average American than something like Great Gatsby, once you're able to get past the misconception that the average American is white and middle class. In the special collector's edition of The Coldest Winter Ever, which contains reader's guides and character analyses, Souljah writes, "Of the thousands and thousands of letters I receive about this novel, 90% of them are from girls and women ages 11 through 40, all who swear in ink, Sister Souljah, I am Winter Santiago." Sister Souljah's novel connected to an entire generation of readers, and that deserves some recognition. The only other book I typically consider when discussing the great American novel is Beloved by Toni Morrison, because it is an excellent examination of our country's horrific past. But The Coldest Winter Ever shows our country's present, and while it may have been written 25 years ago, it is still so relevant to today. If you've never read or even heard of The Coldest Winter Ever, I implore you to remedy that situation as soon as possible and read this outstanding novel. Fans of The Coldest Winter Ever were ecstatic when Sister Souljah announced she was finally writing a sequel. Called Life After Death, this continuation of Winter's story was finally published in 2021. Unlike The Coldest Winter Ever, though, Life After Death was almost universally panned, with a Goodreads rating of only 2.5. But after loving The Coldest Winter Ever so much, I needed to read that follow-up immediately. The reason there was such a lengthy gap between these two novels, spoiler alert, is because Winter Santiago was incarcerated, and Souljah wanted her fans to feel Winter's absence in real time. In an interview about this book, Sister Souljah explained that one of the messages of this novel is that the drug lifestyle is a death style, which we see in the opening scene of the novel. As Winter is walking out of prison, she's murdered, shot, dead. After this, the rest of the novel is an afterlife story, a story which is much darker and bleaker than most of the afterlife novels that I've read. Like, for example, she winds up in a relationship with the son of the devil while she's residing in the last stop before the drop. There's like several stages of purgatory in this book's take on the afterlife, and the last stop before the drop is the lowest of them, full of hedonism and debauchery. Everything that was set in the last stop before the drop was fucked up. Like, they took this incredible character, Winter Santiago, and after she gets fucked in the ass, she becomes a dog, and the demon guy's still finger fucking her as a dog? Turns out this transformation was a metaphor for STDs, with the message that STDs are punishment for bad people, for your own personal failures and shortcomings. And you only turned if you got fucked up the ass, so as a clear anti-sodomy message too. Life After Death is also very anti-abortion. Winter gets rescued from being a dog by an army called the UBS. But what does UBS stand for? Unborn souls. The souls of aborted fetuses, appearing as grown men, fighting to defend the souls of the mothers who killed them, because they love her, and they forgive her for their murder. The message the UBS preaches is to give up your sinful ways and accept Allah as the one and worship Him and only Him. Yeah, it's that kind of a book. Now, this whole book, I was waiting for the terrible homophobia. I'd read several reviews that said this book was super homophobic, and while this book was offensive in plenty of other ways, I still wasn't seeing the homophobia. Toward the end of the book, I think I found it. Although, I don't believe it was explicitly homophobic. She says, I don't give a fuck what two dudes do in the bedroom, but if you're in a committed relationship with a woman, then you better not be fucking dudes on the down low. See, I can totally get behind that. If you are in a monogamous relationship, then you shouldn't be getting down with anybody. Her issue isn't with gays, it's with DL guys who lie to their spouse about who they are and what they do. So while I will say that this book is problematic in a plethora of other ways, no, I don't think this book is truly homophobic. So as I've expressed, I hated the bulk of this book so much. That is, until the last 100 pages or so. Obviously, this is going into super spoiler territory, so if you want to save yourself from spoilers, go ahead and skip to this time here. Spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The majority of this book was awful. It was garbage, it was offensive, it was problematic, but the last quarter or so of the book, I loved it. Winter eventually decides to listen to her aborted child people, and is begrudgingly like, okay, fine, I'll start worshipping Allah, I guess. And I really loved when she progressed out of the hellhole that she was in and into the City of Mercy, where she finally had to think about things and listen and process. It was while she was moving from the last stop before the drop to the City of Mercy when I first caught myself thinking, oh my gosh, I love this book. And I was like, what the fuck? Stop that. No, you don't. But I did. So then she goes to this counselor meeting, because everyone in this level of purgatory has a counselor to help them work through their stuff so they can move on and ascend into heaven. Winter asks her counselor if there's any way to bypass all this preparation and just take the fast lane, to just get it over with. And the counselor's like, well, you're welcome to take the truth test at any time, but you really should study for it. And Winter's like, no, I hate studying. Let me just do this now and get it over with. So she does. The truth test was phenomenal. The test is administered in complete isolation. She's completely alone in this room with just a desk and a mirror. The person administering her test is her own disembodied voice, the keeper of her truth, who knows all of Winter's lowest and darkest points. There is absolutely no way for her to lie or seduce her way out of this. She just has to face herself. First, a screen lights up and shows her every dick she has ever gone down on, in life and in death. And her voice asks her, how can you bow down to each of these men, yet you've never bowed down to the one? Then the voice accuses her of being a thief. And she's like, no, my friend Simone was the thief. And then the screen shows her a scene from the first book, hitting an elderly woman over the head with a rock, then mugging her. So she has to admit that she's a thief. Then the voice calls her a murderer. And she's like, hell no, I never killed nobody. So the screen comes to life again, and this time returns to that moment where she hit the woman with the rock. Then cuts to the woman on a slab in the morgue, having died from the injuries she sustained when Winter attacked her. So then she has to admit, you're right, I am a murderer, even though it was an accident. Then the voice is like, and you also had an abortion. And she's like, okay, fine, I'm a murderer, even though I don't consider that murder, but whatever. And they just went down her list of crimes, making her come face to face with every terrible thing she has ever done. And she has to admit every single one. Oh, I thought that was so cool. Then we're under the impression that she failed the test. The floor opens up and she's falling and falling, but she didn't burn. Instead, we find out that when she got shot in the beginning, yes, she did die, but they brought her back and she was in a coma. And I know everyone hates the "it was all a dream" trope. I'm not a fan of it either. However, this was not all a dream. Her brain showed zero activity while she was comatose. It wasn't dreaming. She was elsewhere, at the last stop before the drop, or the City of Mercy. And she's learned from it. When she finally gets to reunite with her father, she reminds herself that she can love him, but she must not worship him, because you must only worship the one. And she even prays now, although she ensures that she only does it in private, with the door locked. So while outwardly she's still the same person she's always been, she's a lot more reflective about who she is and what she does. And I love that so much. I'm personally not a Muslim, but I really really appreciated that moral and her becoming a better person through it. It sucks that it took so long for this book to get good, but then it got so good, and I am so glad that I read it. I really hated the first 3/4 of this book. However, by the end of it, I genuinely really loved it. If you asked me the morning I finished it, I would have told you this was a 1-star book. I'm so glad I stuck through to the end. Definitely won't be a book for everybody, and not one I would quickly recommend, but I think for the right reader, this book could be really special. So there you have my thoughts on Sister Souljah's seminal urban fiction novel, The Coldest Winter Ever, and its controversial sequel, Life After Death. What do you think? Have you read these books yet? Are you going to now? Should The Coldest Winter Ever be considered the great American novel? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if it pleases and sparkles, I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!